on SportsGrid. It's Game Time Decisions. I am Kevin Walsh with you on a national championship Monday. Two number one seeds go head-to-head. UConn trying to go back-to-back against Purdue, trying to become consecutive 2-0. Unbelievable trend. Can't stand it. Teams to lose to a 16 seed and then win the title the year prior. 6.5-point spread, up to 7 at some spots. That 143.5 over-under has dropped. I was live with Joe Lisi on Bracket Central when the very first lines came out, and it was a 147.5 total. So under money clearly coming in on your national championship game. Zach Edey and Donovan Clingan going head-to-head with all of the other pieces around it. And this game, not without some questions around the coaches. Not if they can get the job done, but if this will be their job within the next 48 hours. That speculation will continue with the Calipari news. We'll get to that in a moment. But I do want to give the people some juice. And usually the quick pick you'll get in about 7 minutes. But first pitch at Yankee Stadium is in less than 5. And I'm going to take Juan Soto for 2+ bases. This is a plus 145 prop, which I love getting that type of money on Juan Soto. Hasn't homered yet at Yankee Stadium. I think that could be in line today. Going up against Jesus Luzardo. Soto, such a talented hitter that I don't mind the lefty-lefty matchup. Let's get the plus money involved here. And let's get 2+ bases for Juan Soto. That is not the MLB play of the day. We are due for a big-time bounce back in our MLB play of the day. It's a run line. It's a little ugly, but I'm excited about it, and we'll get to that in a bit. Let's get the radio audience in here. Sirius XM, channel 159. Kevin Walsh with you on Game Time Decisions on SportsGrid on a national championship Monday. And who are we talking about on National Championship Monday? John Calipari. And it is not because the Kentucky Wildcats are playing in this game. It is because the Kentucky Wildcats coach for nearly 15 years is staying in the SEC and going to Arkansas. A stunning move. No other way to describe it. The conversation around Cal throughout this Kentucky season, would the Wildcats move on from him? A round one elimination to Oakland was unacceptable, but ultimately a $30+ million buyout saved his job. That's the reality of it. But it appears that Cal was aware the only reason he was going to stay in Lexington is because they didn't want to pay that type of money. Clearly made him a bit cautious about his job security moving forward, and made him a bit cautious about what type of support he was going to have at Kentucky, knowing that the clock was going to be ticking on his tenure there with the Wildcats. So he ultimately makes the move to Arkansas. Musselman takes the job in South California with USC, and this job opened up. A stunning result here. But for Kentucky, it does work out. It's not a slight to Cal. It's not. But they wanted to move on from him. You could tell it. You could read the tea leaves. But that buyout was going to prevent them from making that type of move, because you'd have to buy out Cal, maybe then buy out your next coach, pay your next coach. It's a lot of money all in one. So now we have this big question mark of who could the head coach be for Kentucky next year. With the Wildcats still some respect in the 2025 national championship market. If we take a look right here, they are at 20-1. Only 6 teams with better prices. By the way, side note, Cooper Flagg will be the favorite for National Player of the Year. Trying to figure out who's going to replace Zach Edey, who's won that back-to-back years. It will be the freshman forward for the Duke Blue Devils in that market. You can fade it. I'm not saying he's going to win it. I'm just letting you know when that market opens up, it's going to be Cooper Flagg. So here's Kentucky at 20. Right now, tied for the 13th best odds is Arkansas. And that's a good reminder. John Calipari is not going to obscurity. He's going to a program in Arkansas that Eric Musselman completely had rolling. While it was a down season this year for the Razorbacks, the prior 3 seasons saw 20-plus wins, 2 trips to the Elite Eight, and another trip to the Sweet 16. Cal is not going to a place that is going to say, oh, just get us to the tournament, it'll be fine. No. Calipari is going to need to win at Arkansas. He comes with a lot more cachet than Eric Musselman. So isn't the expectation for Cal to do more than Musselman did? That's a Final Four appearance. This is nothing easy that John Calipari has accepted here at Arkansas. But obviously, to lose Muss and replace him with Cal is exciting. Who replaces Calipari? Perhaps Dan Hurley tonight coaching for UConn. You're going to think it sounds crazy. Coach is live with us in 5 minutes. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about Nate Oates, a little bit about Scott Drew, a little bit about Mark Few, and I don't really know if we waste time with anybody else. Kentucky shouldn't really be going any lower than that. This is arguably the best gut job in college basketball. It's top 3 unquestioned. We'll see what they do. Let's push it forward here a little bit. Of course, we do have a national championship game tonight. We talked about it off the top. UConn and Purdue. Number growing stronger on the Huskies. Tournament UConn is an all-time great. 2 straight years now they've covered every single game they've played in. Of course, booked as a favorite in all of them. It started with a game against my Iona Gales. And it possibly concludes here, the first back-to-back champs we've had in a very, very long time, since Billy Donovan's Florida. By the way, I know Coach thinks Billy Donovan could make some sense for Kentucky. I disagree. We'll get into that. Can UConn go back-to-back? Even if they do, can they cover a big number? They are not playing some jabronis here. Last year, San Diego State, with respect, that was a surprise that they were in that game. Purdue, a number 1 seed, catching 6.5. That is because everybody has been making money for 2 years, lining up UConn bets. We'll see if it happens again. A quick mention of yesterday's women's game. South Carolina complete a 38-0 season. Maybe the best job of Dawn Staley's career. I didn't think that team would cross the finish line because while they were great and better than everybody else, to be unbeaten, you were not compared to who you were playing against that season. For me, you're compared against all the all-time great teams. I didn't think that was an all-time great team. They now are a Pantheon college basketball team, and Dawn Staley is obviously an all-time great women's college basketball head coach. One of the greatest players in the history of women's college basketball, Caitlin Clark, sees her season end, her career end, the WNBA draft next week, though, where she is, of course, expected to go first overall to the Indiana Fever. We'll put eyes on the baseball board here quickly. Again, the MLB play of the day is coming up. I've got a run line. I have 2 run lines that we'll give to the people. One, we're taking a 1.5, and another, we're going to lay a 1.5 here. Braves, Mets, again, that Yanks-Marlins game. Is that soda already with 2+ bags? Not yet. We'll get there. Interesting game here, Barrios and Luis Castillos. 2 teams struggling a little bit out of the box. Castillo specifically struggling early. We've seen this from him before. Keep eyes on that. Can the Astros wake up? We shall see. Quickly, it is Masters Week, by the way. It's a busy time here on the grid. Scotty Scheffler and then everybody else. That's the conversation. We'll have it all week long. Coach is live next, right here on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I mean, is it pretty much cut and dry that NC State is the biggest surprise of the weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody's bracket had the Wolfpack going this far.
I think they're going to find a way to keep this one close. And we all know Purdue's tournament history under Matt Painter. They've had a lot of early exits when they've been good teams, and maybe this is the time they'll exercise their demons. It's kind of like when Virginia lost to that 16-seed UMBC.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We had the best team in Colorado losing. So there's it's not even like Colorado's going to sit on it, right? I mean, there's no way in the world we're not getting one more goal. We're going to cash this ticket. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I love the bet. I love the price. I think that's, like I said, that's one we're going to have to, we're telling everybody right now. They're probably moving it in risk rooms everywhere. right now based on us giving out this information.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome in. It's Game Time Decisions. We are live on a championship Monday. Kevin Walsh, Coach James Young. JY is going to be here now in 20 minutes and throughout the national championship game. He and Ben Stevens will handle your pregame cut. Well, this is your pregame. I mean, it's all. I'm so excited, JY.
Oh, it's great.
I'm so excited.
It's great. I mean, it's so great. We met.
Yeah, it's great.
We didn't talk about this. Just about,
news.
let you know.
It's great news. Let's quickly just set this stage for the title game because we're going to have so much time to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I really want to get into the Cal conversation with you as well. You know, obviously, I have plenty of thoughts with anything that involves Kentucky. 6.5-point spread. At some places, this is getting up to 7. I don't know, JY, if you're on a side tonight, but at some point, do you look at this as this is just too many points here? Or if UConn's going to win, they're going to dominate?
I really look at this game, and when you look at it really quickly, folks, and we'll get into it in nauseum, beforehand with the pregame show. Well, this is the pregame show, but you know what I mean. When you look at Purdue, it's always been the dominance of Zach Edey, right? Zach Edey versus whoever. He's going against King Klong, or King Klong, whatever they call him now. Donovan Clingan, 7'2", one of the best shot blockers in the nation. And it's someone unlike a Ryan Kalkbrenner who's a little bit thicker and meatier, so you won't get buried in the hole. The reason why I like UConn is, even minus the points, is I've come around to think that I think Dan Hurley's going to play one-on-one. And if the referees let the bigs play, which I think they're going to, I think Donovan Clingan can slow down Zach Edey, meaning we're not going to get a 35 and 15 out of Edey tonight. Now, if he does, God bless him, that'd be fantastic. But to me, I think that creates problems on the perimeter because the guards need Edey to get double teams to get off shots. I think they play straight up. UConn's just better at the guard spot, and I think they pull away in the second half and cover a 6.5-point spread.
So, again, we have plenty of time to get into this national championship game. I will say this. I may end up with more confidence in Zach Edey than anybody here tonight. The big advantage for Zach Edey prop bettors is the amount of minutes you can expect from him in this game. He just has to avoid foul trouble. And I'll tell you this right now. I am not worried about Donovan Clingan post touches fouling out Zach Edey. I'm not, JY. Clingan is a very talented player, legitimate lottery talent. Clingan does not have some elite bag on the bottom of the block there. That just needs to be straight-up defense from Zach Edey. We'll get into all that. We're going to circle right back to this. We may not even have enough time to do all the Cal stuff. Don't worry. We're live with you all night long. I had a conversation today with Donnie Rightside on Moneyline. Mm-hmm. I want to start with this angle of it because everyone's talking Kentucky, understandably. And he said, man, Cal's walking into a perfect situation in Arkansas. He's going to be a god. He's going to get him to the tournament, and they're going to be like, wow, this is amazing. Respectfully, I think Donnie is unaware of what's been going on at Arkansas for the last half-decade. Musselman has continuously put up winning seasons. In his 3 years, I know it was a down year this year, 3 prior seasons, Elite 8, Sweet 16. Calipari has to make it to a Sweet 16,
absolutely,
and then some with the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Oh, absolutely. And now, listen, he may get it past year one because of the what he's going to get in. But to me, this is a basketball hotbed. I don't want people to sit here and think that Arkansas is hot trash. I mean, forget what Musselman's done. I mean, this is Wo Pig Sooie. This is Mike Anderson. This is Nolan Richardson. This is tradition for a long time at the University of Arkansas. So, yeah, I mean, is this a landing spot for Cal? It's a new start. And the reason why I say it's a new start, Kevin, is I looked at it as this. The fan base and the boosters were getting restless in Lexington. I said it before the season. I said if Cal doesn't make it to the Sweet 16, it's going to start to get ugly. I think Cal feels like he lost support, and he looked at, if I'm going to get out of here, where am I going to go? Think about this. He could have stayed and got $33 million, and he left. That means he knew something may have been coming down the pipe. One more bad year, and it could have been it. So if you can go get a job at Arkansas, which is going to give you supposedly $5 million in NIL money, which is a ton, then it's a move. It's good for him. It's good for Arkansas because it's a big name. They were getting spurned by some people, right? Yeah. So they had to go get a big name, and they went and got the biggest. For Kentucky, they don't have to pay the $33 million buyout, which I think is huge. That opens up more money for them to go get who they want. What it comes down to is who do they get? And then on the Cal side, Cal needs to change. To just go get all the McDonald's All-Americans one and done guys. Kevin, you've seen it. It does not work. He's still new place, same story. Cal's got to get Sweet 16s or better every year, or in Fayetteville, it'll get just like Lexington.
So, and that's why Coach and I are going to talk about who we think Kentucky should go after, will go after, and ultimately who gets that job at 6:40. All right, we're going to make you wait a little bit on that because Arkansas, and I get it, it's almost the forgotten end of it, right? That is, though, to give you people an idea, the Kentucky job is one of the three biggest jobs in all of college basketball. Kentucky, Duke, UNC, you can put them in any order that you want. So that's why we're all talking about this. But his responsibilities at Arkansas, I mean, they're not going to finish sixth in the SEC, and they're like, this is awesome. That team's expecting a lot more. My question for you is with the recruits, right? He has a few 5-stars, ultimately 6 commits right now at Kentucky. How much turnover do you think happens with these kids? Because a lot of them, if I'm not mistaken, JY, they could all decommit, flip to Arkansas, decommit, go somewhere else. Obviously, Kentucky's going to want to hire their coach by the end of the week, probably by Wednesday, Thursday, being realistic. What do you expect for these recruits that Cal has committed to Kentucky? Can he flip a few of them?
Well, I think that's going to be the kind of the plan, and we'll see who he brings on staff. Whether Bruiser Flint comes with him, Orlando Antigua comes with him. Let's see who comes with him. I already know, obviously, that Bradshaw's already gone into the portal, which is interesting, but there's a little bit of a scuttlebutt talking about maybe, out of all places, Rutgers could be in play because of the fact he's a Jersey kid. He's close to Dylan Harper, so on and so forth. So you're going to see a lot of movement now. You already saw one top player from Arkansas already decommit. So you're going to see some moving parts, and it's going to move really, really fast.
Well, let's just also hit on this. Duthiero, I know he's not lighting the world on fire. I like the kid. I think he's talented. This is a kid that hit the portal when the year ended. Cal was losing kids, JY, regardless. This is not a situation, I know, and I get it. Oh, Bradshaw left, probably going to go to Arkansas. No. This season for Kentucky, it ended up with an ugly feel around it. Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepard will leave and go to the lottery, and they're both very excited about what they did. Every other one of these kids leaves feeling underwhelmed. Antonio Reeves, I don't think, has any more time left to be playing, but those big recruits, Justin Edwards left for the draft because he feels this is his only opportunity to probably get drafted, which I think is a really interesting situation. Bradshaw, Thiero, these are kind of kids that are getting out of there. But again, it's why Kentucky can't wait too long to ultimately make that move. I'll put it to you like this, and again, because I don't want to blow through what we think about who Kentucky brings in. 20-1 right now on Kentucky to win a title. I believe it's 40-1 at this moment on Arkansas to win a title. If you right now were so far out, if you had to put $2, Coach, on one of those two, which would you rather put the money on for next year?
I honestly would put it on Kentucky more because I think there's going to be landing spots. Really quick, I'm hearing, I have kind of reaching out to people I think I got in Kentucky. The only name I heard so far is the assistant coach, Tyler Eulis, who's young and aggressive assistant. There's rumors that he is going with Cal. That's something I've heard in the last hour. I'll keep digging to find out, but it's big news in college basketball. I'm sure we'll get into it later on. We got plenty of time, but it's major news in college basketball. And we haven't even gotten to the national championship game with this tonight.
Yeah, and again, we're going to get to that. Again, we're going to talk to Joe Madden here. Get your baseball picks, get your hockey picks, 2 games tonight on the NHL. JY's going to be right back here in 20 minutes. I'm just going to add this, and this is more of maybe a personal thing, but JY will get this as well. One thing, though, that is about to be very weird is the 15 players that Cal put into the NBA. And just every year, Kentucky always tweeting out about those guys, and every year Cal reacting with those guys and knowing that Cal is now at Arkansas. It's just odd. Nobody's put more NBA talent. Nobody's put more NBA talent in the NBA than Cal in the last 15 years. And now those talent are still there. SGA, AD, Devin Booker, top of the league guys. And now Cal's still coaching in the SEC, not at Kentucky. Coach, we'll talk in 20. Joe Madden up next is Game Time Decisions.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I mean, is it pretty much cut and dry that NC State is the biggest surprise of the weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody's bracket had the Wolfpack going this far.
I think they're going to find a way to keep this one close. And we all know Purdue's tournament history under Matt Painter. They've had a lot of early exits when they've been good teams, and maybe this is the time they'll exercise their demons. It's kind of like when Virginia lost to that 16-seed UMBC.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We had the best team in Colorado losing. So there's it's not even like Colorado's going to sit on it, right? I mean, there's no way in the world we're not getting one more goal. We're going to cash this ticket. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I love the bet. I love the price. I think that's, like I said, that's one we're going to have to, we're telling everybody right now. They're probably moving it in risk rooms everywhere right now based on us giving out this information.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
chairs, a.k.a. Game Time Decisions. We're making it happen, baby. We're live. We are live with you on a championship Monday. The excitement levels, it's palpable. It's in the air. But it's not all that's going on. We have big-time boards in Major League Baseball, and we got 2 games to get to on the NHL. And to help us with that, nobody better, Joe Madden. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me here today, and go Huskies. I'd love to see the Huskies repeat here tonight.
All right, Joe, rooting on a little back-to-back champ situation. Can't get mad at that. Joe, I figure we'll hit the NHL board firstly, since it's just 2 games, and then we'll go through the baseball for the people here. The NHL, it still has 2 really good games, though, which is nice, including Toronto and Pittsburgh. The Maple Leafs, this line increasing as we're talking here at minus 145 now, minus 146. It was earlier in the day higher. It's dropped. It's been bouncing. That total stayed steady, though, at 6.5. What do you see with Toronto and Pittsburgh?
I see all the value sitting here on the Pittsburgh Penguins. We know the Toronto Maple Leafs have clinched their playoff spot. They're sitting 3rd in the Atlantic with 97 points. And while I do think there's some plays we can make on Toronto tonight, I do think Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins are dangerous in this matchup. Crosby's looking to put this team on his back, and that's what we've seen out of him in these last couple of games. They've won their last 4. They've moved into a wild card position, and they don't want to let that go. So I do think here, with them sitting 4th in the Metro with 83 points, with so many teams fighting to take that wild card spot for them, we can see the Penguins come out nice and strong in this. So I'm going to take a chance on them here on the money line. It's going to be hard for them to get the win over the Toronto Maple Leafs because we know how solid they are at home. But the lines are always inflated for Toronto as well. And I just don't love the value. You're having to lay that juice on Toronto on that money line. I'm going to look at Sidney Crosby here. Sidney Crosby for the 2+ points screams value. Like I said, he puts the weight of this team on his shoulder to make them into the playoffs. So 2+ points is coming in at plus 196. I love the value on that. If you think in this game, those points come from goals, I think it's worth a little bit of a sprinkle. 2+ goals out of Sidney Crosby tonight is plus 1,000. It's a lot to ask for with Samsonov in net for the Maple Leafs here, but I do think it's worth a little sprinkle, Kevin. But then you got to look at Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews has 64 goals on the season. His anytime goal tonight coming in at minus 115. If he gets that goal, he will tie Ovechkin's record from 2007-2008 season for the most goals by an active player. So I do think we see him hit the goal tonight at minus 115. It's not as much value as I'd like, but if you think he hits the record and goes above and beyond it, the 2+ goals tonight for Austin Matthews is coming in at plus 500. And I do think this is a high scoring battle out there. I know we have fantastic goaltending. I know this game means so much, but I think if the Pittsburgh Penguins want to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's a 4-3 style game. So Sidney Crosby for the 2+ points, the 2+ goals, Austin Matthews for the 2+ goals and the anytime goal. And then give me the Pittsburgh Penguins here on the money line.
All right, there we go. A lot of action for Toronto and Pittsburgh. Joe, what about Vancouver and Vegas? Typical Canucks line of the total at 5.5 at home at minus 120 right now.
Vancouver is in a situation right now where they're sitting 1st in the Pacific, but we're looking at this team as in a must-win situation. They've only won 2 of their last 6 games, Kevin, and this is not where this team wanted to be in the last couple of weeks going into the playoffs. They have the Edmonton Oilers chasing them for that number 1 seed in the Pacific. They can't let this game go against Vegas. Now, Vegas has won 3 of the last 4 meetings, including in April when they were able to get a big 6-3 win over the Vancouver Canucks. And Vancouver will start Silas tonight. It is not Casey DeSmith. So I don't love the goaltending change, but when you look at Silas, he has played strong for them, recording wins in both of his starts. He has a 1.50 goals against average and a 9.30 save percentage. So we should see a strong effort out of him. He'll need that support by his defense out there. The Vegas Golden Knights come into this starting Logan Thompson. We know how phenomenally strong he is, but I think this game has a chance of going to overtime. And because I think it has a chance of going to overtime, I can't take this one to the under. Even though I do think this is playoff style hockey, I would expect that first period to be lower scoring. And then I think things open up as soon as one of these teams scores. I'm going to look at Vancouver here. I know they're the favorite at home and Vegas has dominated 3 of the last 4, but I do think we see Vancouver find a way to get the win. I'm going to lay the juice, but I'm going to look at some player props here. JT Miller of the Vancouver Canucks has been super vocal in the press, and I love looking at these players that have been vocal in these losses. His power play point tonight coming in at plus 170. He's on a 7-game point streak right now, Kevin. So I do love that power play point. And then Thomas Hertl getting his debut here for the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. I think you can take him for the 1+ points. Remember, he was with the San Jose Sharks. He was off with injury. The 1+ points tonight comes in at minus 118. I think it's safer than taking that anytime goal, but I'd love to see him come out and get a goal for Vegas. They have high hopes for him joining their team.
Well, listen, a couple of interesting spots then tonight on that NHL board, but also plenty of baseball. Right now we have the Yankees and the Marlins live, as well as the Guardians up 2-0 on the Chicago White Sox. Coming up at 6:40, you'll see Ashcraft get the ball for the Reds against the Milwaukee Brewers, and then the Pirates and the Tigers go to battle with a total of 8 between Keller and Olsen. Joe, your card will start in around that 7 o'clock window with Barrios and Castillo. Right now, Toronto, a home favorite in this game, total 7.5. What are you looking for?
Oh, I want to back the Toronto Blue Jays here, and I'm going to. This is their home opener, and I know this team has had their struggles offensively, and it feels kind of crazy looking at them here versus Castillo, but I think Castillo with his struggles to start the season, we're going to see Toronto's bats finally look like the bats that we had hoped we had seen out there on the road. Castillo just hasn't had a strong start to start here for the Mariners. He's got a 6.75 ERA and a 1.78 whip. And when we look at Barrios coming out here for the Toronto Blue Jays, his 2 starts have been so strong. 12 innings pitched with a 2.25 ERA. I think he comes out and plays really solid. We've seen him strong, especially at home over the seasons. Last season, 15 games at home with an overall ERA of 3.30. So I'm counting on him to be strong, and I'm counting on the bats of the Toronto Blue Jays to be hot tonight, Kevin. I'm taking the Blue Jays straight up on the money line, but I also have a same game parlay in which I'm looking at Toronto to go over their team total of 3.5. I'm also looking at George Springer to record a run, Vladdy to record a run, and Bo Bichette to record a run, and Barrios to come out here and go over his strikeout number, which is 6.5. So it's asking a lot, but if this parlay pays off, it's plus 1170 out there, Kevin.
All right. What about now this Tampa Bay team, Joe? They enjoyed some success this weekend in Colorado. They got the offense going, won the series. What do you think they followed up with here? A road favorite against the Los Angeles Angels.
I think we're going to see in this one, Zach Eflin come out nice and strong. Now, he's making his 3rd start here. He does have a 5.25 ERA. We could see the Angels hit off of him a little in this one, but the Angels are starting to look like the Angels of last season where those strikeouts are going to come for this team. So I'm expecting Eflin to have a strong start here. Anderson, on the other hand, I do think we'll see the Tampa Bay Rays be able to hit off of him. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Rays team total over 4.5. That's coming in at minus 115. I'm expecting them to be able to hit Anderson in this one. When we look at the 2 career starts Anderson's had versus the Rays, he's got a 7.84 ERA. So he's shown his struggles versus the Rays. And I do think the Rays bats have been hot in some of these games, and they should be able to capitalize on Anderson in this one. So give me over their 4.5 runs, Kevin.
All right, Joe. And then also you're looking to get some action here in the game tonight for the San Francisco Giants with Blake Snell taking the ball at home.
You got to love Blake Snell making his debut here for the Giants. Now, he should be on a limited pitch count. I do believe only 70 pitches we'll see him out there for today. But I do think you can look at the Giants here in the first 5 innings. In the first 5 innings on that run line, you still have to lay 1.5. It's at plus 120. But I can't get behind them for the full game. They're 0-3 on the run line. this season so far. So when they're recording these wins, they're still not blowing out teams. I do think they'll hit nicely off of Trevor Williams to get the start here. Trevor Williams has had one start with a 3.38 ERA, and he looked pretty solid versus the Pittsburgh Pirates. But I do think here we'll see the Giants come out nice and strong. You got to remember, Williams had an ERA over 5 last season, so I can't trust him. And I do think the Giants' first 5 run line, laying the 1.5 at plus 120 has so much value here, Kevin.
All right, fantastic stuff as always. That is Joe Madden. Joe, appreciate it. Best of luck tonight.
Best of luck, Kevin. Thank you.
All right, again, awesome stuff as always there from Joe. I mentioned the Juan Soto bet for 2+ bases. He did walk in his opening at bat, which does not help us any. But a couple of run lines coming up here. I would trust the Atlanta Braves. Feels ugly to do, but I'm going to lay the 1.5 with Charlie Morton getting the ball against Julio Teheran. And then the MLB play of the day comes to us courtesy of the Colorado Rockies against the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Rockies, a awful 2-8 baseball team at home, can cover the run line. Kyle Freeland is one of those inverse Rockies pitchers who's somehow better at Coors, and Zach Gallen has legitimate road struggles here. I know he's off to a hot start, but we move this situation to Coors. Expect him to get touched up in this baseball game, and the Rockies to be able to score enough to hang within that run line, maybe strike the upset here at Coors. They covered the run line in 2 of the 3 games against Tampa Bay. Coming up next, Coach James Young. What's next for Kentucky? What's going on with this national championship game? We'll break it all down.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I mean, is it pretty much cut and dry that NC State is the biggest surprise of the weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody's bracket had the Wolfpack going this far.
I think they're going to find a way to keep this one close. And we all know Purdue's tournament history under Matt Painter. They've had a lot of early exits when they've been good teams, and maybe this is the time they'll exercise their demons. It's kind of like when Virginia lost to that 16-seed UMBC.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We had the best team in Colorado losing. So there's it's not even like Colorado's going to sit on it, right? I mean, there's no way in the world we're not getting one more goal. We're going to cash this ticket. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I love the bet. I love the price. I think that's, like I said, that's one we're going to have to, we're telling everybody right now. They're probably moving it in risk rooms everywhere right now based on us giving out this information.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Live right here on Sports Grid. It's Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh with Coach James Young. Coach, let's talk a little bit more about tonight's national championship game. And as always, the conversation is, how do you stop Zach Edey? You're not going to. And I'm on Zach Edey tonight over the 22.5 points. I think this is a great number. Zach Edey, JY, would you say it's safe to say he'll play 35 minutes tonight in this game? Play the full 40 in a matchup against NC State?
Yeah, I mean, he should play the full at least 35, 36 minutes. He'll probably use the media timeouts as a way to kind of give him more of a break without, obviously him missing a lot of court time.
Well, if he does play 35 minutes, that would be the 17th time. So far on this season, in 16 games with 35 or more minutes, 13-3 over the 22.5. In fact, it's 25 or more in those games. In those 16 games, he scored 30 or more in 8 of the 16 games. He's over 3-1 to score 30 tonight. I think there's legitimate value on that number. This is a spot to me. I've talked about it, JY. We'll see how it plays out, but at this moment, to me, he's runaway player of the tournament. It's all going to likely come down to this game regardless, but I'm trusting Zach Edey, volume at minimum, to go over his 22.5 points. Only 2 free throws last game. That won't be repeated.
Well, it's going to be, a lot of it's going to come down to, honestly, in my opinion, the referees. Like, what are we going to get out of the referees? Are they going to let these two guys go at it and play? Because it's a little bit different. If you look at a guy like a DJ Burns or some of these other guys, they have to literally move him off of his spot because of the fact that he's so much taller. Klingon has the size. But listen, I think it correlates, right? If you think that Zach Edey is going to go over his points prop, then you would probably be leaning at taking the points. I think they work hand in hand, because if Zach Edey doesn't have 25 points, let's say he has 16, 17 points, there's no chance in hell that they're covering a number. So there's ways that if you believe that Edey's going to get the points, then you're more likely to believe that Purdue's going to cover the spread, if you want to put that together. If you're on the flip side and you think he may not get there, then you're probably going to look at UConn, because if you're Dan Hurley, the key is you want to cut the head of the snake, and that's Zach Edey.
It certainly is. Now, trying to figure out who's going to step up for this Huskies roster tonight, I really do like Tristan Newton. Coach, he's been struggling a bit here, but he's too good of a player for me for those struggles to continue. How about this? In his last 3 games, he's 4 of 11 from 2. First of all, a lot of three-point shots, which is good if you want to get over a points prop there, which is in line. That number's 15.5. But this is a guy now that's shooting under 40% in his 2-point shots, when throughout the year, he's been over 50% on his 2s. I also think, though, rebound regression positively is coming for him. Only 3 rebounds in each of his last 2 games. He broke that up in the middle with a 7-rebound game. I'm playing Tristan Newton tonight, Coach, over 21.5 points plus rebounds.
Well, I think Tristan Newton's going to have a big game. They're going to run that wing ball screen action, and I think where you think it's close in the bigs, or closer in the bigs, I think there's a decided advantage in the guard play with the guards of UConn. So I can see that. For me, I'm looking at Castle, and I'm looking at him to make 8-3 at about minus 145, minus 140. Okay. I think he made 2 threes last game. I think if I am Purdue, right, he could excel by getting to the rim. Mm-hmm. So what am I going to do? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to say, you're going to have to make a couple before I, come back and guard him. So I do think Castle to make 1 3 at least. And I'm going to go Cam Spencer. I just got this feeling that he's going to get loose a little bit. With the guys trying to get to the hole, kick out to Cam Spencer. He knocks down 3 or more threes. I think that's still at plus money, so I would take a look at that. And for me, I'm gonna give the points. I'm gonna give the points with UConn. I look at this team, and I think Edey's gonna have more difficult time than people would expect. And I think the guard play is gonna be key. And I think UConn will do something I don't think it's typical. If Edey's gonna play 35, 36, 40 minutes, I actually think UConn's gonna try and run and try and wear him out. And that means a guy like Johnson coming off the bench, who is really fast in transition, if they hang points props for him, 4.5, 3.5, I may jump on him. He may get a couple of putback dunks, run a transition, and score that way as well.
And we know that the bigger the game, the more options we get. Now, JY, give me a little bit here. Let's hope all these bets are as good as the quick pick. That's a Juan Soto double for the people.
Ooh.
That's what you like to see. Let's stick, though, here with UConn. And will Dan Hurley leave for Kentucky? We know Kentucky is going to give him a call. We know that for a fact.
Mm-hmm.
The buyout, I looked this up, is about $10 million. No sweat for the Wildcats as well. Basically, Dan Hurley can leave and get this job if he wants it. Now, there are going to be some say, now, why would you do that? With respect to UConn, there is a very big gap between that job and the Kentucky job. And that's not a slight to UConn. Kentucky is arguably the biggest job in all of college basketball. That is the difference that we are talking about here. And jobs like this do not come open very often. You know, the Duke job, basically, in my eyes, JY, never even opened up, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know Kay was passing that baton to Shire. Hubert Davis obviously took the UNC job. And now we are here with the Kentucky job. I think Duke, UNC, Kentucky are your three biggest jobs. To be able to get one of those is massive. I think you look right now at the UConn roster for next season. You know, Hurley was right. He knew that he had Special coming back. But now, Special's leaving. Newton and Spencer, no more eligibility left. Klingon and Castle will be lottery picks, the both of them. And we know Kentucky's going to have plenty of talent for him to work with, and he'd be able to bring anybody he wanted. He'd be able to dominate the portal, dominate high-level recruits. And maybe the biggest thing, and I want you to speak to this before you tell me what you ultimately think Hurley decides, but isn't there value, JY, in coaching in the SEC or the Big Ten when we look at the state of college sports and all of the realignment?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to speak about that. I think me looking at Dan as a Jersey guy and knowing the family a little bit and coaching against Mr. Hurley is what I always have called him. I don't know if he's just going to be the kind of guy that's going to go to the SEC. They're a loyal family, right? Mm-hmm. If you could think about, go back, folks, and look at how many times Bob Hurley Sr. was offered a college job and never left St. Anthony.
Yeah.
You know, they're a Northeast family. They're hard hat, you know, tough family. Jersey City, born and raised. I don't know if he's going to be the type of guy that's going to go run to that job. Now, what I think it does, no matter what, it puts immense pressure on UConn to come up with a ton of money. Because it doesn't matter. If he doesn't go now, like whenever every big job's coming and they got big money, they're going to go after Dan Hurley. So if I'm UConn, you got to give him the bag. He's earned it. You can talk about if he wins the national championship today, you're going to start talking about, is he worthy of Hall of Fame consideration already with 2 national championships? Back-to-back especially. So it's a really intriguing case. I ultimately think loyalty, family, Jersey pride, Northeast. I don't think he goes. But, Kevin, it's like what type of DBS. Everybody's got a price. And there's got to be a number that Kentucky may throw out there that may have Dan Hurley say, you know, this is like generational wealth here. I may not be able to turn it down.
Well, I know this isn't how it's going to play out, but the Cal buyout was over $30 million.
Mm-hmm.
The buyout for Dan Hurley, I saw the report said it was $10 million. Now, they're not going to pay him $20 a year. But I'm just saying they considered doing 30 just to get rid of Cal. And that's what's made this such an interesting situation, is if you're Kentucky and you had to consider that, which they did, you are not out of the price range of anyone. The guy that I had initially mentioned when we thought that Cal might be fired was Nate Oates. The idea around Nate Oates being a negative was the buyout's too big. Well, now it's not, because you're not firing Cal. Again, $18 million all of a sudden seems cheap when you thought the buyout you were going to be paying was $32, $33. Also, Kentucky fans this year really enjoyed the style of play that they had. Up-tempo, great offense, a lot of threes. Well, the king of that is Nate Oates.
Yeah, and listen, they play with as much pace as anybody, and they play an exciting brand of basketball. And I think it would be an exciting brand of basketball that would attract high-level, particularly guards, right? Because they want to play that up-tempo style. So, Yeah,
if you're Boogie Flan, you're not leaving if Nate Oates is coming through.
No. And I think, listen, so I think Nate Oates makes a lot of sense. To me, and I heard you in your first segment when we started the show, I think this is lined up for a guy like Billy Donovan. And the reason why I think Billy Donovan does make sense here is he's won in the SEC. He's got back-to-back NCAA titles. Mm-hmm. He has coached some of the biggest stars in the NBA that are guards. Mm-hmm. And Chicago is going to have to reset.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the coach that's going to reset, or do you go back to college when I felt like he was one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in the sport? Do you go back to college to Kentucky, where I do believe he was an assistant to Pitino for a little bit of time? I think he makes sense. I like Bruce Pearl. I think Bruce Pearl is someone, to me, here's the thing, folks, you got to understand. You have to have a larger-than-life personality, right? You can't just be a coach and a recruiter. You got to deal with the fan base. You got to deal with the donors. You got to deal with the media. You got to deal with your TV and your radio.
Team. It's all they have in Kentucky.
Right. So you need a larger-than-life figure that can step in and deal with all that. That's why Nate Oates, I think, makes sense. That's why I think Bruce Pearl makes sense. That's why I think Billy Donovan makes sense. Like people mention like Dan Hurley makes sense. People mention like Kelvin Sampson. That's not a job for Kelvin Sampson. Like that's not his personality to be there. So no matter who it is, it better be a home run, and you better come with that bag.
I will say this on Billy Donovan, and maybe I'm off base. I would say this though, and I might be crazy. I wouldn't call Jay Wright or Billy Donovan. College sports has changed so much, so quickly, that I don't know what Billy Donovan looks like. And I mean, Jay Wright, it was 2014, 2015 was last year Florida. 10 years ago. I feel like that's a risk. Am I crazy to say that's a risk?
I think a lot of it comes down to your system. By the way, I'm going to say this right now, and I'm not having, like, I have no knowledge, whatever. I would be floored if Jay Wright took the job. I will be. That would be the craziest thing, because Jay Wright got out because he didn't want to deal with the portal. He didn't want to deal with the NIL.
Yeah.
And that being said, let me give him his flowers. You want to talk about someone that's gone from the coaching sideline and has really done a great job stepping into like an analyst role? Jay Wright is as good as it's got really quickly. But I don't think Jay's also a Northeast guy, the Philly guy. I don't see him going down there. But Nate Oates, some of these other guys, it does make a lot of sense.
Now, I'm going to keep JY here because there's a name we haven't gotten to yet that we will. It's not this name I'm going to bring up, which is Scott Drew. I read the report yesterday from The Athletic that the AD, Barnhart, I believe his name is, of Kentucky, really would love for it to be Scott Drew. This might be a situation for Kentucky where they're just late to the party. Scott Drew of Baylor was sought after by Louisville, and he turned that into a new contract with Baylor. I just do not know a contract that was signed within the last month if you could all of a sudden leave and become the head coach at Kentucky. But Scott Drew's ability to get McDonald's All-American, hit the portal, great offense, it checks the box. One more name to get to next here on Game Time Decisions.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I mean, is it pretty much cut and dry that NC State is the biggest surprise of the weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody's bracket had the Wolfpack going this far.
I think they're going to find a way to keep this one close. And we all know Purdue's tournament history under Matt Painter. They've had a lot of early exits when they've been good teams, and maybe this is the time they'll exercise their demons. It's kind of like when Virginia lost to that 16-seed UMBC.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We had the best team in Colorado losing. So there's it's not even like Colorado's going to sit on it, right? I mean, there's no way in the world we're not getting one more goal. We're going to cash this ticket. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I love the bet. I love the price. I think that's, like I said, that's one we're going to have to, we're telling everybody right now. They're probably moving it in risk groups everywhere right now based on us giving out this information.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, we're back right here, Game Time Decisions. At the top of the hour, we'll reset the card. We'll check the live board. We'll check any odds movement. There's one name we have not mentioned yet, Coach, and that's Mark Few.
Ooh.
Mark Few leaving Gonzaga. It's one of those things. Of course, there's bigger jobs than Gonzaga. I think the difference for me is Gonzaga's leaving the WCC, so you're going to be in a big conference anyway, and I feel like he found out maybe the past 2 years he missed the peak of Gonzaga. And by the way, everything he's done there should be celebrated. He is an all-time great coach in college basketball history. This is a Kentucky job. Should Mark Few not be listening if Kentucky comes calling? And would you come calling if you're Kentucky?
Yes.
Okay.
Why wouldn't I? I mean, this guy's done that much in Spokane, and he's developed pros, and I think, he's very well respected and one of the best tacticians in this sport. I really think that would someone that I would really look at, and it's going to be it's crazy because no matter who they call, like you want to listen. Like, for instance, it's crazy. Like the Tennessee women's job, which is kind of like the equivalent of the Kentucky men's job, and they had Adia Barnes from Arizona interview, but like Jeff Walsh from Louisville, big name, said no. Carol Lawson went to Tennessee, said no. But this is a job. This is, with all respect, almost UNC and Duke. I think this is the mothership. This is the job of college basketball because of the recognition, the history, the money behind it. If someone calls you, you got to listen. By the way, Kentucky, I'm free. I'll take a certain amount of money. Kate up over all my staff. Big Ten Ben, he's coming in. He's here. He'll jump on the staff. Joe Frizo, Director of Basketball Operations. Let's go. We got the staff. Come get us.
I hate to say how much that fires me up because it's obviously not happening. That'd be a great time.
Oh, we win.
That'd be a great
time.
We win. I'll do this quickly. The amount that I want to just go coach high school basketball, put advanced analytics in, and dominate some poor New York school where nobody else understands the power of the three-point shot, but that's a whole other thing. Say why. We'll talk in a bit. Back in less than a minute. Live right here. It is Game Time Decisions with you on a national championship Monday. I'm Kevin Walsh here on SportsGrid. Appreciate Coach James Young and Joe Madden helping us out through our opening hour. Here in our second hour of coverage, Ben Stevens will stop by. Both he and Coach will be handling your pregame duties from 8 until tip-off, and I will be joining the both of them for our live coverage of tonight's game between two top seeds in UConn and Purdue. If you take a look right now, the odds across the landscape are seeing a continuing growth in this UConn number. 6.5s are becoming 7. It's pretty much split right now, looking between about 9 different books here, maybe 8 different books. You're seeing 4 and 4 on that number. The total, 143.5, 144, and a loose 145. So some buyback on a number that's continuously been dropping. Opened up around 148.5, 147.5. People starting to buy back on this total tonight between UConn and Purdue. Also joining us this hour will be Joe Lisi. We'll get his picks and plays for tonight's championship game, and we'll talk to Matt Peralta in 40 minutes, who's been helping us throughout this tournament. We'll get his thoughts on the title game as well as any baseball picks that he may have. Let's quickly reset, though, with my picks for tonight's national championship game. 2 favorite ones that I'm going to be playing here, but my absolute favorite is Zach Edey over 22.5 points. A dropping number due to the continued respect for UConn. And while I understand respecting the Huskies, you can lay that number all you want. Zach Edey deserves all the respect in the world as well. Averaging 28 a game in this tournament and missing that prop for just the first game so far. This is a must-over for me. The radio audience is here, Sirius XM Channel 159. Kevin Walsh with you on this Monday night Game Time Decisions, SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio, talking about Zach Edey and getting over this listed number here of 22.5 for Zach Edey. This is someone who has played the best teams, they've beaten the best teams, and he has been great in these games. But even when you look at the step-up spots this season against the top defenses in the Big 12, or the Big 10, Rutgers, who has a great defense, he gave him 25. Michigan State, here's 32. Here's 29. He is continuously, Maryland scored 23. That's over the number. He's over the number against Rutgers. Oh, here's another 26. He's over consistently against all those defenses. And you might say, oh, come on, UConn's defense is way better. Well, hold on now. That's not what the numbers tell us. It's not. And Zach Edey coming off of a game where he had only 2 free throws, I love that. I love that. That's double-digit attempts tonight then. Zach Edey will be at the line in this game. And more than anything is Zach Edey will be playing in this game as much as possible. Take a look at this. Gonzaga, 38 minutes played. Tennessee, 39 minutes played. NC State, the full 40 for Zach Edey. If you look this season, in 16 games with 35 or more minutes, he has gone 13-3 over a would-be number of 22.5. Zach Edey will step up and dominate in this game, win or lose, because that is what he has done for Purdue all season long. Before we get to anything else, let's send it over to our guy, Davis Maddock, as we get you set SGP style right here on Game Time Decisions. Here's Davis Maddock, same game parlay.
All right, guys, we have got a same game parlay over on the FanDuel Sportsbook for the Men's National Basketball Championship final. Purdue, UConn. I'm going to take the Purdue side here. I'm going to take Purdue plus 6.5. One, I think the vast experience of these final games is that the games end up being fairly close. And I also have just been so impressed with what Purdue has been able to do, both offensively and defensively throughout the entirety of this tournament. UConn is definitely on a different level, but I think this one should be a fairly tight game. And if it is going to be tight, you have to be on the Zach Edey prop. So we're going to take Zach Edey to score 20 or more points in this game and to record 10 or more rebounds in this game. Honestly, I think you could juice those numbers up even further. Or if you were going to take Purdue money line, take Edey over 30 or 10 or 12 rebounds. So we're going to go Purdue plus 6.5, Edey to score 20 or more points, Edey to record 10 or more rebounds at plus 214 odds on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Good luck tonight, everybody.
All right, there you go. Davis Maddock trusting Zach Edey in a big spot. I'm going to trust Edey, and I'm going to trust Tristan Newton as well. Love the bounce back potential here for Tristan Newton on the points and rebounds number over the 21.5. Could clear this on points alone. He's only had one 20-point performance so far in this tournament. Could be due for another. What's causing his scoring performances to be let down a little bit here has been the 2-point shot, not the 3-point shot. Great 3-point volume. He's 4 of 11 from 2 in his last 3 games. That's 36%. On the year, he's a 52% shooter from 2. He can start to convert some of those mid-range jumpers, looks in the lane, finish around Zach Edey, even get to the free throw line with 2 to 4 threes made from Tristan Newton tonight. He'll break out in that area, plus over the rebound number tonight would be a look, but I'm going to bring it all together. 3 rebounds in each of the last 2 games. I think 7, 8, 9 rebounds is live for Tristan Newton. I'm tempted by betting the triple-double number. It's 40-1, I believe, for anyone in this game to have a triple-double. Tristan Newton, though, is the guy that I would be keying in on. I know Braden Smith could do it. Could Klinger or Edey have 10 blocks? That'd be crazy. That would be nuts. Might have to sprinkle a little bit on the triple-double, just see if we can get a little mixy there for the people. Baseball picks, if you need them, we got them. Juan Soto, by the way, 100-plus bases, alt. He had his first home run at Yankee Stadium. I got to tell you, that's about as good as a cap as you could hope for. The real question is, why is that not the MLB play of the day? Now we're fighting up against it. Whoa. Why was that thing on the thing? All right, that's interesting. Now, 6-0 Yankees, 4-0 Guardians, 1-0 Tigers. We're going to take the Braves minus a 1.5. Charlie Morton in Atlanta going up against Julio Teheran and the Mets. The Braves here on this season are 6-2, 5-3 on the run line here. I think this is a great spot backing Charlie Morton at home, and this Braves lineup will hit as always. Coming off a game where they only scored 5, expect more from this team. By the way, still waiting to see Ronald Acuna Jr. hit his first home run this season. Could that possibly come tonight? If it doesn't, Dinger Tuesday is tomorrow. And then the MLB play of the day, that's going to be the Colorado Rockies against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Rockies plus the 1.5. This was at minus 102. Kyle Freeland, a reverse course pitcher who was better at home throughout his time with the Rockies. Zach Gallen has bad road splits from last year, and Zach Gallen, seeing the Rockies again, they're going to be a little bit in such short order. And now at Coors, Rockies score enough. 3 home games, 2 of the 3. They've covered a run line. Give me the Rockies plus the 1.5. On deck, the man himself, Joe Lisi. If Bama beat UConn, he'd be here in person. Instead, he's live tonight on radio going head-to-head with our national championship coverage, with his own national championship coverage. Also, it is Masters Week, and you know he's going to put it with the golf. Maybe he's got a couple of early looks. You never know with this guy. So we're going to break it down. We're going to talk to Ben Stevens. We're going to talk to Matt Burrell as our coverage of tonight's national championship game continues after this break.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I mean, is it pretty much cut and dry that NC State is the biggest surprise of the weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody's bracket had the Wolfpack going this far.
I think they're going to find a way to keep this one close. And we all know Purdue's tournament history under Matt Painter. They've had a lot of early exits when they've been good teams, and maybe this is the time they'll exercise their demons. It's kind of like when Virginia lost to that 16-seed UMBC.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We had the best team in Colorado losing. So there's it's not even like Colorado's going to sit on it, right? I mean, there's no way in the world we're not getting one more goal. We're going to cash this ticket. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I love the bet. I love the price. I think that's, like I said, that's one we're going to have to, we're telling everybody right now. They're probably moving it in risk rooms everywhere right now based on us giving out this information.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on SportsGrid. Game time decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Joe Lisi, one half of Carver and Lisi, joining me via satellite. Lisi, hate to see you're not here. Love to talk to you, though. How are you, sir?
Oh, always a pleasure, Kev. Big game tonight, huh? Big ball game out here for the title. UConn
It's in
and Purdue,
Arizona.
Arizona, nothing better. Nothing better.
All right, talk to me on the side. I know you were breaking down. I know you wish you were breaking down NC State, Alabama. We got the reverse. What do you see here? 6.5. Some spots, this is 7 now, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, right now I know UConn's the better team, but as long as Zach Edey has a good game tonight, I like the points with Purdue. Now, I don't know if they pull through and get through in terms of the plus 230 money line, but I think they're definitely live. They play good defense. I expect it to be a half-court type of game for much of the first half, feeling out type of process. What do you get out of the secondary role players? We know what Edey can do. Braden Smith was held out, scoreless against NC State, 0-7 from the field, 0-4 from three-point land. If he comes through, what a better effort tonight, 15+. I think Purdue will be well within the number, but I like the under 146.5.
An under for you tonight. That's how I know you really don't like this game. It's listen, a lot of people have certainly bet this number down. You and I were live Saturday night when that total dropped at 147.5, and you said you thought under here. Are you playing only the full game? Did you play some first half? Any team totals?
No cheat totals yet. I like the under, and I like the points with Purdue. Again, I'm going to hold out. The one pre-game bet I am going to play is Braden Smith. I told you about 15+. His number tonight, I think, is 12.5, 11.5. But for him to get to 20, it's plus 720. And 3 threes, I think, is in the area of like 230, almost 3-1. So I'm going to take a shot that he bounces back with a big way. I mean, in terms of the team totals, I don't like it. If they do overextend and score potentially quick in the first 5 minutes, I might take it under in that type of situation.
Now, props-wise, Joe, is there anybody on this UConn team that you think could be in for a big game here? I know you've been hot on this Castle.
Yeah, I think it continues, Kev. I think we saw the recipe in regards to guard play. We know what Klingon can do. We know about Newton. But Steph Castle took the ball into his hands and was a confident shooter. Now, he didn't hit from three as much in regards to his first half type of frequency, but he still stepped up, drove the lane. And his number tonight, I think, is light as well. I think he could duplicate that. I don't know if he gets to 20+, but I think 15, 17 isn't out of the realm of possibility tonight. So like both guards in regards to this matchup.
Interesting spot there.
I think for Castle, if he can really follow that up, Joe, it gets very interesting. His number for player of the tournament has dropped all the way to plus 300, suggesting that this is going to be Final Four only. My head hurts a little bit. I'm curious, Joe, though, big college basketball news. And the other day, you said Musselman was gutless, and you tweeted out a photo of you running on the Arkansas court with no shirt on. At least I thought it was you when I saw it. What did you make of Arkansas replacing Musselman with John Calipari?
Well, recognizable name, right? It's potentially an upgrade in regards to just resume and what Calipari was able to do winning a national championship, and Musselman's still trying to get over the hump in the SEC. But again, they're going to need a better effort. Cal is a great recruiter. It's the coaching aspect, the X's and O's, that I think that's why Cal moved on to Arkansas. It gets a fresh slate. Kentucky was like, a one and done this year, right? So he was coming back this year, but definitely going to be under the microscope and on the hot seat unless they stepped up and made it to at least an Elite Eight Final Four appearance. I don't think Cal would be back in Lexington. Who do you get now? Now, the rumor about Hurley, here's the thing I don't understand. Why, if you're Hurley right now, why would you leave? I mean, they're going to throw a boatload of money at him. He's got a contender in where he is. I mean, these guys, they just run for bigger and better deals. I said it first. If you could get Jay Wright, lure him out of the broadcast booth, throw him a ton of money.
I have a question, though, specific, though, with a college football comparison. Kalen DeBoer leaving Washington for Alabama, and how different is that from Hurley if he left UConn for Kentucky?
Okay.
Now, you could say Hurley won 2 titles. DeBoer, if he would have beat Michigan, are you telling me he wouldn't have left Washington for Bama? Because, Joe, Kentucky basketball and Bama football are very comparable. They are.
Right. They are. You're absolutely right. It's a great similarity. But here's the point. UConn is not just some middle-of-the-road group of 5 team that won a national championship potentially in back-to-back years. They won it with Ollie. They won it with Calhoun. They're a recognizable brand name as it relates to college basketball. I mean, you can't say that UConn isn't up there with the likes of Kentucky. Now, Kentucky has the long-term history as being the blue blood, but UConn is right there. UConn's won more championships modern day than Kentucky has, if you want to say. They're right there neck and neck.
That's true.
And he has that train in
that's
motion.
True.
But he has that train in motion. Why leave?
Listen, you're right. It is, but also, at the end of the day, right, what's the bigger job? The Knicks' job or the Bucks' job? So, look, UConn, I'm not trying to downplay UConn. Kentucky's one of the 3 biggest jobs. Like, Kalen DeBoer left a Washington program that he's had nothing but success at and was going to the Big Ten. But Bama came calling. I mean, there was no hesitation there. And again, I ultimately feel like Hurley will turn it down, Joe, but the landscape of college sports, coaching in the SEC might be, the most it's a lot more comfortable than coaching not in the SEC.
No, you're right. But here's the other thing. You think Lexington and Kentucky, they're not going to have any margin of error, just like they're not going to have any margin of error in Tuscaloosa. Kalen DeBoer goes 8-4. Most likely he could be like Brian Harsin at Auburn before he's like any coach bringing a national championship there. That is what you get in regards to these programs. And I'm not suggesting Hurley couldn't do it at Kentucky, the best, hot-blooded area in regards to recruiting. The question that we talk about is when you build a contender, he built UConn to potentially be in back-to-back national champions, depending upon what happens tonight. If he gets it done, okay, it's to get Kentucky back on top. But where's the loyalty? It's not like UConn. You ask 1,000 people what's the best college basketball program in regards to the hoops now, they're all going to say it's the UConn Huskies. They're not going to say it's the Kentucky Wildcats. That's how far UConn has evolved as a program. And look at the women's side, too, for years with Gino. So it's not like it's not a hotbed for college basketball talent. They recruit there. Where's the loyalty from these guys? It's always the buck. That's what I can't stand. It's always about the buck.
I think, Joe, though, look, a part of it is about the dollar. It's also there's a legacy thing, right? Like, I know you said, look, if Kalen DeBoer falls on his face, then that's a lot of pressure, right? I get that.
But if Kalen DeBoer hits, he could become an all-time great. Now, you might say Hurley has been able to look. What Hurley tonight might win back-to-back titles and put himself already in a different class of conversation. But I'll also say this, and this is the difference between Alabama football and Kentucky basketball. Saban this year made this college football playoff, and everybody's like, oh, he's washed. Cal can't get out of the first round, and they were going to bring him back. They were going to bring him back, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
Hurley doesn't have to win a title in year one.
No, but it's great for Kentucky.
Let me sneak this in.
Hurley.
Can I sneak this in, though, quickly? Nate Oates, are you out on him after being gutless and not fouling, or is that a good hire?
It's not Hurley, but it's a good hire. It's like if you can't get Hurley, I would settle on Oates. But if you're Kentucky, I'd throw a boatload. Yeah. Hey, what does it take? If we can't get Hurley, I want Jay Wright. Talking about a coach that's won 2 national championships and understanding he's a young guy.
I wonder, though, I guess, let me, who do I have the college? Would you rather Lincoln Riley or Urban Meyer? Would you rather Nate Oates or would you rather Jay Wright? Lacey, I love you. Good luck tonight. Good luck tonight. We'll be right back.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I mean, is it pretty much cut and dry that NC State is the biggest surprise of the weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody's bracket had the Wolfpack going this far.
I think they're going to find a way to keep this one close. And we all know Purdue's tournament history under Matt Painter. They've had a lot of early exits when they've been good teams, and maybe this is the time they'll exercise their demons. It's kind of like when Virginia lost to that 16-seed UMBC.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We had the best team in Colorado losing. So there's like, it's not even like Colorado's going to sit on it, right? I mean, there's no way in the world we're not getting one more goal. We're going to cash this ticket. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I love the bet. I love the price. I think that's, like I said, that's one we're going to have to, I mean, we're telling everybody right now. They're probably moving it in risk rooms everywhere right now based on us giving out this information.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early
The
line.
magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're live on SportsGrid. with Game Time Decisions. And for the second time on this show, BWS Ben Stevens is with me. Ben tonight will be leading our national championship live coverage. He and JY take over in a half hour and give you a ton of pregame action, every single angle that you need. Plus, I am sure, an extensive breakdown of John Calipari's huge move to Arkansas. I will join both Ben and Coach at tip-off for tonight's game between the Huskies and Purdue.
You're going to take a full hour and 20 off?
Not a moment sooner, brother. Not a moment. No.
Truthfully?
I mean,
we're not going to have Kevin Walsh's pregame card before the national championship.
I mean, what do you think we're doing here?
Good point, but
riddle me that.
But it's almost like, the Sports Center lead-in. I should not have said that on this air, but it's a lead-in show into what would be a pregame show separately, right? It's almost its own entity. What you do here on GDD is fantastic,
right?
But it's the lead-in to our national championship coverage, of which you are a part.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to Production Meeting Decisions, live right here on SportsGrid.
Yeah, good talk.
I want to, because we're going to have so much time to talk the game together.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about the Calipari stuff.
For sure.
Obviously stunning.
Yeah.
It's incredible, but a lot of people, rightfully, the first reaction is, what a break for Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they would have fired him if the buyout was not over $30 million. What was your reaction?
I think that's kind of my first reaction as well. I think if you could ask Big Blue Nation what they would have liked, it was a parting of ways with John Calipari. And at a certain point, that's just what needs to happen, right? The marriage no longer has the harmony. You can appreciate what was done, but you want things to be different. And sometimes things just become stale. And I think the situation in Lexington was that. There's also this idea, because of how Cal can recruit and what he means for the development into the NBA of his stars that did win a championship in 2012 at Kentucky, of course, that he was the right guy for college basketball. I think as we saw in the last few years for Kentucky, that wasn't the case. And frankly, I think if you were to ask many in Lexington who live and breathe at Rupp Arena, who live and die by Kentucky basketball, do you care if your guy goes in the lottery or you reach the Sweet 16? They would tell you 100 times out of 100, we want to be in the second weekend. That's not enough. We want to be competing in a Final Four. That's probably not enough. We need to win national championships here. And so I think the model that Coach Calipari had in terms of develop the NBA, have the one-and-dones, have these superstars that rise to the next level, not necessarily the way that college basketball is won anymore, certainly the last 5 years or so. So I think those in Lexington are pretty happy with the situation to not have to pay $33 million in the buyout and to be able to get somebody who is a premier college basketball head coach. And we'll see if Cal's situation changes in Fayetteville.
So it's a great breakdown. There's a lot there. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with this, but I will just say I think that the cop-out that Cal has put forward and people have put forward for him of, look, this isn't how basketball works anymore, is insane. Steph Castle is now the third best option to win player of this tournament. Now, I know there's a lot around him at UConn and guys that have been there before, but the notion that freshmen can't have an impact is obviously not the case. And I'm not saying you're saying that. And it also misses the boat that the starting lineup had Antonio Reeves and Trey Mitchell, who both have played a combined 10 years of college basketball.
Absolutely.
And also, it's that Cal can't get out of the first round anymore. It's not, Cal keeps losing to all these. When Cal lost, an unforgivable loss, to Wisconsin with the platoon squad, and it was like, because they had veterans, that was a real conversation. That was a Final Four game. He lost to Oakland, and I had to watch Jack Gokel then go have a three-point shootout contest with Taminga and get smoked. Shout out to the kid.
Yeah, absolutely so. You bring up a great point. That talent that he has is not the reason that they lose constantly and do not reach their ultimate destination in an NCAA tournament game. If you add Rob Dillingham, if you add Reed Shepherd to any of the teams that we are going to see tonight, any of the teams we have seen since the second weekend of the Big Dance, that is a huge value addition. I think it's the overall idea, although they had Antonio Reeves this year, and they've been able to keep some of that veteran experience in the past few years in this NIL era. The way things have been constructed around John Calipari does not work, whether that's the way he recruits, whether that's the talent he brings in, or just the roster construction he has. I don't think Cal was all that pleased with his team, even with Antonio Reeves, as we heard after they lost to Oakland, and he threw his team immediately under the bus.
Yeah.
Something was not right. The situation had soured, and now I think both parties really have their ultimate end that they're happy about.
What's interesting, because I can speak to this angle quite a bit, is a lot of these kids end up underdrafted based on how they perform in the league, and I don't know what to make of that. Tyrese Maxey, who won most improved this year, dropped 50 last night, ultimately hardly went inside the top 20. SGA hardly went in the lottery, and this is Devin Booker hardly went in the lottery, and then they go to the league and they're incredible, and we give Cal all the credit for that, and we go, well, hold on a minute.
We didn't even know these kids could do that.
Yeah.
He has incredible eye for NBA talent, but he's not even maximizing them at Kentucky.
Right.
Okay. That's something that, of course, and you're a big part of our NBA draft coverage, but the NBA end of it, I can speak to. Here's something, though, that you can speak to better than anybody here as the college guy at SportsGrid. I mentioned to someone the other day Kalen DeBoer's decision, despite going further than Alabama, to go from Washington to Bama, because that's the gap. With respect to UConn, there is a gap. Kentucky basketball, Duke, UNC, that's the big three in my eye. Unless you think I'm wrong. Does Hurley not have to listen to Kentucky? They have to make the phone call.
He certainly has to listen to Kentucky. You brought this up with Joe Lisi. SEC money in the future era of college basketball, of collegiate athletics, is going to carry weight. It just is going to carry weight. Is it the ultimate deciding factor for Dan Hurley? I don't believe so. Could you make an argument that after winning back-to-back titles at Connecticut, he's looking for a new challenge to reinvigorate Kentucky just from the insane competitor he is? Maybe so, but the SEC component of it is much more stable ground even than the Big East is in terms of being a basketball-centric and basketball-focused conference. Even with their deals that they have TV revenue-wise, they're never going to compete with the SEC and the Big Ten. And Kentucky is a blue blood. Connecticut is more successful in the last 2.5 decades. Connecticut has the brand name and recognition to match Kentucky in today's current climate. I don't think it's an elevation necessarily of that brand recognition like a Washington for Kalen DeBoer is to Alabama football in Tuscaloosa. But it's just the TV money behind it and the stable footing and the investment that you always know you will have, even if there is a small inkling of doubt that UConn cannot match. That being said, the Huskies are going to match. Whatever the number is for Kentucky, UConn, I think, will offer something generous enough that would keep Dan Hurley there. That money is not the deciding factor or maybe not the be-all, end-all.
What's so interesting, and and again, this is the difference. I would never argue that Kentucky's been more successful than UConn in this period, but what UConn's ability to hit the peak is like this weird thing, right? Calhoun, Alia now, Hurley, perhaps back-to-back years, and perhaps Hurley is about to establish that consistency.
Yeah.
But UConn has not had that consistency. They've had to win from higher seeds than typical. Cal has made the tournament nearly every year at Kentucky. And that is, again, when you get to Kentucky, you make the tournament every single year. I think that's one of the fascinating ends of it. I ultimately don't think Hurley will leave. Jay Wise mentioned the Northeast ties, which I think is incredibly valid. Do you, at this moment, have an expectation of who Kentucky brings in?
I think they're going to go after Dan Hurley.
Okay.
I think he's going to be their big fish. I think you will hear Billy Donovan with a change in Chicago for the Bulls, moving back in the NIL era to college basketball, where all the NIL investment is going to be worth it, maybe to not have to recruit the same way he did during his days at Florida. Of course, a guy that, as Dan Hurley might do tonight, was the last head coach in men's college basketball to win back-to-back national championships. I think Nate Oates will have those ties. Certainly, I think you'll hear Bruce Pearl. You'll have some of those big names in the SEC pool. I think some Kentucky fans should be very thrilled at the idea of Scott Drew. I don't think he's the sexiest name. But I think in terms of having the ultimate success, Scott Drew might be that guy. But that would be a list of about 4 to 5 names that I think the biggest of the fish would be Dan Hurley, followed maybe by a Billy Donovan and a Nate Oates, Bruce Pearl mixed in there. And then I think Scott Drew would be the least sexy, but maybe the most successful, if you want to like.
What's interesting with Scott Drew, so I think a big part of Kentucky basketball, and this is Cal's impact, is I need a McDonald's All-American.
For sure.
Well, the top 5 player in VJ Edcombe next year is going to Baylor. And he's not the only McDonald's All-American. Scott Drew is also consistently putting at least one guy in the lottery every year.
For sure.
That's a part of it.
Yeah.
That's a part of it. And that's a box he checks. I don't know. You don't know. None of us know what his new deal is. Louisville came calling. He rightfully turned that into a new contract. I don't know how quickly you can get out of a contract that new. It's an odd thing. I feel like if they strike out on Hurley, they just pay the Nate Oates buyout because now it looks like a discount because they didn't have to pay the Cal buyout.
For sure.
That's kind of basically firing Cal and bringing in Oates was $50 million. Now it's $18 million.
Absolutely so.
It's huge.
I think the idea of not having to pay John Calipari anything to make this move is all Kentucky needs. When they can say we did not spend $33 million to fire a guy that we ended with pretty good ties who now turns his back on this program, he can look like the vilified figure, and we saved all this money. We have all the money that we need. We have all the investment we need to go out and get whoever we believe is that best candidate.
Question for you.
Please.
Is Cal at a football school now?
Yes.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's the first time ever?
Mark Stoops might say differently.
Well, but
I mean, I know he would say differently, but let's not be silly.
Of course.
Right?
It's the first time Cal is at a football school. Yeah.
Memphis, I mean, my goodness.
No.
And then UMass.
Certainly
I
not.
Mean,
I mean,
no.
Don Brown's doing some good things, but no, I wouldn't say so.
That's interesting to think about.
Very much so.
But again, and I was texting you about this.
Yeah.
He's not going to a program.
You didn't leave me with a message in that text that made it seem like we were not in contradiction. I was with you, I thought.
Yeah.
And then you just sent me a link, and I didn't know where we stood.
Oh, I sent you there's you can bet right now the money line of when Kentucky goes to Arkansas and when vice versa, which I was just showing you that.
Yeah.
Look, again, I mentioned it to Coach. I was talking to Donnie. He's like, Arkansas is going to be thrilled because Cal's going to get into the tournament. I'm like, brother, do you think last year was their first year as a program? Elite 8, Sweet 16. I'm just saying.
You know who you're talking about.
Listen, and I love the guy.
Yeah.
But
he's already in bed.
But, I mean,
he's not even going to watch the pregame.
Certainly not.
The national championship.
Certainly.
Game.
I mean, he might leave it on in the background.
Oh.
Maybe.
I think he's out. I think he's out by 8:30.
Might have the Phils game on in the background. All I'm saying is Cal's walking into expectations.
Wheeler plus 550 National League Cy Young, robust market now.
Interesting. Wow. Baseball guys. Many are asking. Matt Brawl joins us next.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I mean, is it pretty much cut and dry that NC State is the biggest surprise of the weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody's bracket had the Wolfpack going this far.
I think they're going to find a way to keep this one close. And we all know Purdue's tournament history under Matt Painter. They've had a lot of early exits when they've been good teams, and maybe this is the time they'll exercise their demons. It's kind of like when Virginia lost to that 16 seed UMBC.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We had the best team in Colorado losing. So there's it's not even like Colorado's going to sit on it, right? I mean, there's no way in the world we're not getting one more goal. We're going to cash this ticket. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I love the bet. I love the price. I think that's, like I said, that's one we're going to have to, we're telling everybody right now. They're probably moving it in risk groups everywhere right now based on us giving out this information.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're live right here on Game Time Decisions. We're going to talk to Matt Peralt momentarily. I did want to keep Ben around, who, again, in 20 minutes' time will begin our full pregame coverage of the National Championship. I wanted to ask you about the National Championship game. I'm going to be on Zach Edey tonight. At minimum, I trust Edey over the 22.5 points. What's the face?
Wow, I would not have expected that answer. I would not have expected you to lead off with my first national championship handicap as I'm going to be on Zach Edey.
Yeah. Look, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Most unbiased man, history of sports media.
Never done
But also, that they dropped the number because it's UConn. And that has been a thing throughout. Look, and I'm not saying it's a hit at a 100% rate. I'll tell you this. Every time I go through a Houston game and the other team's point guard all of a sudden has his points prop 6 points lower than it should be, I can't help myself.
Yeah.
This number for Edey is, I know it's so different. But it would be like 29.5 if Bama pulled off the upset.
For sure it would.
I have to get there at 22.5.
It was 26.5 against NC State, and the only reason it didn't go over is because it wasn't a basketball game at a certain point. If they needed more from Zach Edey, he would have given them more. A very pedestrian 20 points and 12 rebounds.
Free throw attempts.
I'm also very interested. I think Donovan Clingan's at a slight discount, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because his is at 13.5 and 7.5 rebounds because he's going up against Zach Edey.
It's interesting, though, for Clingan. It's a type of defense he's not played all tournament.
For sure. And
Right?
it's probably
Protecting
a matchup.
the rim versus one-on-one post defense is a change.
It's probably a matchup he rarely sees. He had Ryan Kalkbrenner at times throughout Big East play.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I think it's a little bit too exaggeratedly down for both Clingan and Edey because the idea that they're facing their, looking in the mirror at themselves, and that is the matchup they have. And I think it's interesting when you think about how this matchup is, right? They don't often see a guy that's 7'4 or 7'2 on the other side. So how do they then perform as it relates to the props? Is 18-10 a good night for Zach Edey because it's Donovan Clingan? I don't think so.
No. No. And I think then a bet that you could see Ben on potentially is Edey and Clingan to combine for 40 at plus 210.
Yeah. Saw that earlier.
Which could certainly be carried by one of the guys. We'll talk a lot. Appreciate it. But I want to talk to Matt Peralt here. Matt, happy belated. Hope Chicago was a blast. How are you? He's muted.
Championship night. It's kind of a stinker that we get the last college basketball game, but
I am excited for this game tonight. Look, you and I have talked a lot about both of these teams here, Matt. I know earlier on in this tournament, though, there were a couple of spots where you were like, how do you not bet UConn? Is that what we're looking at here?
I mean, I think so, but the number I don't like. I mean, I don't like 7. I mean, this is one of those numbers the books put up as a stop sign because it's a championship game, and in order for 7 to hit, I think this has to be a one-sided affair. And if you want to go 5-0 Purdue ATS in this tournament to kind of throw it back in the book's face and say, okay, we don't think UConn's going to run away with it. I don't know. I think UConn wins the game. I just don't know if I like the number at 7. It seems to be too heavy in my mind. But I think UConn wins, but I think you can easily talk me into taking the points with Purdue if you have a strong opinion on it. But I just think this game's going to be a little bit lower scoring than what you two were talking about. That's why I think the props are set where they're set. I mean, some books are down to 143.5 from a total perspective. It opened up at 148.5 at certain plays. I played it under 146. I think this game's going to be methodical. I think this is going to come down to 3-point shooting, and that's why Edey's numbers, I think, are a little bit depressed here in the props market because I think the 3-point shooting is going to be the priority. Look, if Purdue doesn't hit 13 threes like Creighton did, they're not winning this game. The last time this team lost, UConn, the Creighton Blue Jays hit 13 threes in Omaha. That's my number. You better hit 13 threes today, Purdue, or you're not winning this game.
Yeah, I'm struggling with a read on the total. What I'll say in singular defense of my Edey pick is he scored 20 in a game against NC State that had 113 points, which is 30 south of the current total. So,
right.
And they scored 63. Like, yeah, if they score 60 tonight, we're in for a tough night, right? But the team total tonight is 67.5, give or take. Something, right? So but that's why I'm also, and look, Matt, I know you can relate to this. You get to a big game, you want to load it up with props. Hey, I got 7-8 picks for people tonight. I got 2 props. I got 2 guys. I think Edey plays well. I think Tristan Newton plays well because, I was like, ooh, Braden Smith could bounce back. And literally, I went, no, I'm already on Edey. I can't do 2 guys against a top 5 defense that prefers to play slow. So what you're saying?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting style matchup here. And for Purdue, look, everyone's going to say, okay, Zach Edey is their engine. He's the guy that's going to drive the entire bus. But I think UConn's going to take him out of the game. I think UConn's going to say somebody else is going to have to beat us, and you're going to have to do it shooting from beyond the arc. And look, they can do it. I mean, Purdue's, if you look at KenPom, look at the numbers, they're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country because teams have tried to do this before. It's just that UConn is so deep. UConn's got the size. UConn's got the game plan, I think, to take Zach Edey off the board here. And then it comes down to the referees. When he does get the basketball, can he get UConn into foul trouble? And can he get to the foul line? If Zach Edey does that, you're right. He's going over, and UConn may be in trouble.
I think to the foul thing specifically. So he had 22 attempts against Tennessee. It's very odd, right? Because you see that, you go, this is ridiculous. And then you go, yeah, but also it's how often he's fouled. It's a very weird thing. But I mentioned that was the third time in the year he had been fouled. He had shot 20 or more free throw attempts. And that next game, there's always a huge dip, right? Like he doesn't shoot, he won't even get to 10. And that's normal. But this is interesting. Did the free throws dip last game out because the rest were aware he just shot 20? Or it's the Final Four, we're not mucking the game up like that? And if it's the latter, then to your point, that's trouble. If I get 6 free throw attempts from Zach Edey, that's not what I'm looking for. I don't think that'll happen. I think Donovan Clingan is getting drafted for rim protection. That's not what guarding Zach Edey is. It's a much different thing.
Fair. No, I agree. But the referees, look, they talked about it. Dan Hurley talked about it. They want to make it a Big East game. They want to get physical. They want to get into the legs, into the back. They want to push around Zach Edey. The referees are going to have to, I think, they're going to be tested. Do they want to, like you said, muck it up and get involved, or do they want to put the whistle in the pocket and let the games play out? And if they do that, because it's a championship game, and like we've seen in Super Bowls where referees do not want to be the story after the game is over, they want to say, look, they got 3 guys for UConn with 3 fouls in the first half, or Purdue ended up getting a bunch of fouls early. They don't want to be the story and having their thumb on the scale. So that's why I think Dan Hurley is literally going to dare the referees. Go ahead, make the calls, because they're going to be very physical with Zach Edey, and he can be a hothead. He can lose his cool. So that's a big worry for Purdue here. You don't want him to make it personal and lose his temper, and then who knows what happens after that.
And Clingan is why are they playing music in the background? Are we done? I think is that like the in-game live music? I don't know. You know, sometimes, Matt, in the back, you have to wonder about the focus. You have to ask yourself about it. We'll push forward. I want to ask you this, though, because I was talking to Coach earlier about Hurley and the Kentucky opening, and he goes, he's a Northeast guy, and that really resonated with me as a Northeast guy. You, a Northeast guy. And it's one of those things, if you are, you get it, and if you're not, it is what it is. It's just like Matt's in Vegas, and I'm sure very often he goes, well, that guy's definitely not from the Northeast. I can imagine. Could you see Hurley leaving for Kentucky, regardless of what happens tonight?
No, I don't think it's so. He has the best job. He can win multiple championships. He's in a market that they love him. Why go to Kentucky? What's the point of going there now? In the NIL world, there's no point of going to a Kentucky. Yeah, sure, it's a blue blood, but there's plenty of other coaches. I thought Billy Donovan, the point that Coach made on social media was extremely, extremely sharp. I was like, you know what? That makes a ton of sense. What's he doing in Chicago? What's he doing with the Bulls? Makes no sense. Go back to college. Go to a job that if you leave the NBA, you can hold your head up and said, I left the NBA for Kentucky. You know, I didn't leave it for NC State. I didn't leave it for, a middling school, a third or fourth, pick type of school. I went for one of the best jobs in all of college basketball with a tradition that is unmatched. So that makes a ton of sense to go and grab somebody like that. But no, Dan Hurley to Kentucky doesn't make any sense. But look, Calipari to Arkansas doesn't make a ton of sense, except for the money, because he's going to walk into a gigantic amount of money and all this NIL money. But it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's A&M and Arkansas are 2 places that if you're not really from the culture, it's hard to understand woo pig suey. I mean, watch some of the press conferences. Go watch Dana Altman's press conference in which he did the press conference and walked back to Omaha literally 2 days later because he was so uncomfortable about going to that job because he didn't fit the culture. A&M's the same way. Like, you have to be kind of from the fabric. It's a weird fit. Other than money, that makes no sense to me with Arkansas going and Calipari wanting to go to Arkansas and leaving Kentucky, fine. To go to Fayetteville? That's an interesting move.
I think I think Cal, and it's weird. I like Cal. Like, no, again, I've told.
I'm a UMass guy.
I'm a Kentucky. Yeah, like I'm a Kentucky basketball fan. It's not like my most outward fandom. I like Cal. He's been an excuse maker for a while now, and I think I think he believes all of them, and he believes that they've not given him enough support at Kentucky, and he knows the money he's walking into in Arkansas, and he thinks it's going to fix that. Like again, he's thinking he's going to Arkansas to win a title, not retire. Like it's like that's his thought, whether it's going to work or not. I'll say go ahead, Matt.
I mean, in terms of the money, though, I mean, he's going to have more money to play with in the NIL world than almost anybody else. I mean, he's got millions to throw at players. I mean, this is because I teach at UNLV, so I talk to players and kids, and like I ask, like, how different is the NIL world? Like, what is it like?
Yeah,
and it's getting better. But a year ago, I had a kid who works with the program told me that like there were kids leaving because their parents walked into the coach's office and says, "What's my kid making next year?" And the coach would say this, and they go, "Okay, we're leaving." Like, it's no longer about development. It's no longer about how much you're going to like the university or the degree you're going to get or the team or your playing time. It is dollars and cents. How much money are you paying me? So if Arkansas is going to open up a gigantic amount of money for Cal just to walk up to these kids and say, "Hey, I'll pay you $1 million right now. You want to come play for me? $1 million."
Yeah.
You could do that 5 times and build a team that you can go at least go to the Final Four. Maybe don't win the whole thing, but get a couple of first-round picks and kids that want to make the money. That's where Cal can actually dominate. I mean, he's not the greatest X's and O coach. He's always been a seller, like at UMass and in Kentucky. But man, him with money, that much money, he's dangerous.
So 2 things on that, and I don't know how I didn't think about this until you just gave that terrific breakdown. I wonder if that means all the 5 stars he already have, like if they're basically committed through the NIL to Kentucky, or if they can be like, no, they can just take the money and flip and run. But that breakdown, which it could not be more spot on, and maybe it's why I would not even call Billy Donovan. It was 10 years ago that he was coaching in college. Like, Lisi was like, "Hey, I'd bring Jay Wright." I think Jay Wright, when he walked off the court as the best coach in college, I wouldn't call him. I think this is, for me, call Hurley. He'll tell you no. You have to make the call. And then just tell Nate Oates it's an open check. And we're done.
Right.
That's just where I'm at on this whole thing. It'll be interesting. Matt, quickly, I'm just curious, any baseball for you tonight before we let you go?
Not really. I mean, I've been so focused on college basketball at the moment. At this, I watched the Cubs beat the Dodgers, and I know they're not playing today, so I'm really curious about what the Dodgers look like going forward with that. But Braves on the run line. You want to play? Take the Braves on the run line. They're going to start killing everybody.
Yeah, I think that is possible. Of course, that Spencer Strider news shook up the NL Cy Young market, which is interesting. Matt, appreciate it. Best of luck tonight.
Enjoy the game, guys. Thank you.
All right, great stuff as always. Quick break. Best bet. Ben Stevens, Coach James Young, they're on deck. We're live with you here. It's Game Time Decisions.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I mean, is it pretty much cut and dry that NC State is the biggest surprise of the weekend? I mean, I don't think anybody's bracket had the Wolfpack going this far.
I think they're going to find a way to keep this one close. And we all know Purdue's tournament history under Matt Painter. They've had a lot of early exits when they've been good teams, and maybe this is the time they'll exercise their demons. It's kind of like when Virginia lost to that 16-seed UMBC.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We had the best team in Colorado losing. So there's it's not even like Colorado's going to sit on it, right? I mean, there's no way in the world we're not getting one more goal. We're going to cash this ticket. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I love the bet. I love the price. I think that's, like I said, that's one we're going to have to, we're telling everybody right now. They're probably moving it in risk rooms everywhere right now based on us giving out this information.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Closing out game time decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Appreciate everybody who stopped by, both Matt Peralt, Joe Madden, via satellite, as well as Joe Lisi, in studio appearances from Coach James Young and Ben Stevens, who are right here and ready to go for Bracket Central. It starts at the top of the hour, so go nowhere as the coverage for the national championship game between UConn and Purdue is about to take off. I'll slip in that MLB play of the day, Rockies plus the 1.5. Zach Gallen, are you fading me? You better believe it. But we're all about the college basketball tonight. Tristan Newton, the 21.5 points and rebounds is where I'm looking for the UConn action. But Zach Edey, over 22.5 points is what my favorite bet is in this game. Talk to Ben Stevens. But I'm a little surprised there. Most unbiased man in the history of sports media has done it once again. I understand that Purdue is not a team I've trusted, and Edey and this group, this core, is not a team I've spoken about favorably. Tonight's game will be fascinating, but I've been leading the charge that Zach Edey deserves most outstanding player, win or lose tonight. Now, will the voters get it right? Probably not. They've gotten plenty of things wrong before. But Edey's going to give him something to think about by going over the 22.5 points prop here. If you take a look at what Zach Edey has done in this tournament, just once he's missed this number. That was the last game out, and that's because he only shot 2 free throws. Don't expect that to happen again. But more importantly than the 2 free throws, the 20 points, the 9 of 14 shooting from the field, 40 minutes. Zach Edey played every single minute of that basketball game, and this season, when he plays 35 or more, which is what he will do tonight, he is 13-3 over a number of 22.5. Oh, and by the way, against top defenses in the Big Ten, Maryland, Rutgers, who's actually better than UConn defensive efficiency-wise, or Michigan State, 23-plus in every single game against those teams. Zach Edey tonight, whether win or lose, will play great basketball. And if you want plus money, and I mentioned those 16 games where he's played at least 35 minutes, in half of them, he scored 30-plus. You're getting better than 3-1 for Zach Edey to score 30. Bracket Central, Ben Stevens and Coach James Young is next, right here on SportsGrid.
There is going to be